this is a dedicated control deck. This is going all the way up to a copy of In Garrick's Wake, 3 copies of Villainous Wealth. So this is a deck that's in the market for a lot of mana.
Korby Bigelow with a bit of a brew. Perhaps we have him sit down in the sideboard soon here. Playing as Alex Voss, playing monsters. Alex's deck is pretty straightforward. Korby's is anything but. So both these players sitting at 5-0. We'll see what's going to happen here. Voss just going to play a Forest and pass the turn back. Bigelow going to play a Temple of Malady. Keep it on top. We're underway here in round number 6.
This deck is this is the most carry-added deck I've ever seen because there's nothing going on in this deck until it hits 3 or 4 mana. How does he protect himself, you ask? 4 copies of Dissolve, 4 Hero's Downfall, 3 Sultai Charms, 4 carry added, 3 Courser, and 1 Pearl Lake Ancient are the threats. And then it's removal, a couple Kioras, some dig through times, Ashioks. This deck is going real big. Villainous Wealth is...
That's about as big as you can go.
You can't go much bigger.
No, not really.
It's really big, and it's awesome when your opponent's also going really big.
Fluted Delta is going to search up Bigelow and Island here. Is it a carry added? Yes, it is. Very, very important to his deck. So he does have the Mana Accelerant on turn number 2. Voss will draw a card. See what he can put together on this turn. Maybe a little Courser action. It'll actually be a Goblin Rabble Master. A Goblin token going to come into play and work its way into the red zone here in just a moment.
And if you like streamlined mana bases, Korby Bigelow, the most streamlined mana base of them all that I've seen out of a 3-color deck. 4 Temple of Mystery, 4 Temple of Malady, 4 Opulent Palace, 4 Polluted Delta, 4 Island, 4 Swamp, 1 Forest.
Temple of Mystery. Take a look at the top card. Gonna leave it on top pretty quickly. We'll see if Bigelow actually has a pretty solid answer to the Rabble Master, I think is the bigger question, as that card has been known to run away with a game. And here's another one.
Particularly against control strategies that don't play quality blockers.
So there is Hero's Downfall to take care of 1. It'll take care of the new one, excuse me, the old one. The new one can't attack yet this turn. It will make a Goblin, however, and this will be an attack for 2. So Bigelow's going to go down to 17.
Though, if Bigelow can follow up with another removal spell, he's keeping his head above water for the time being.
And I believe he does have a copy of Sultai Charm in his hand. You saw him draw a copy of Disdainful Stroke. So it looks like he's doing okay, as Bigelow will pass the turn back. Voss will draw a card. 3 mana. Is this another Rabble Master? Now this time it's a Courser.
This is a reprieve for Korby here because he's happy to play a slow game with Alex.
Forest off the top. Voss going to go up to 21. What's the next card? Wooded Foothills. It's not all that dangerous. And there is the Sultai Charm. So bye-bye Rabble Master before the trigger occurs. Now here's an attack for 2. Of course, just going to block one of those down with the carry added, take a point of damage, go down to 16. And as you mentioned, Korby is more than happy to play this kind of slower, drawn-out affair. Your Courser gets card advantage. My deck works towards something that you really can't beat.
Exactly. And he's got a lot of big stuff to get to.
Top card goes to the bottom there from Temple of Mystery.
Just a lot of smooth ways to break serve to Disdainful Strokes, Murderous Cuts. You can keep his head above water early. He's got way more power than Alex does late.
Looks like it's time to delve. Murderous Cut will take care of the Courser. And Voss knows that his opponent does have a lot of removal for Bigelow. He knows that his opponent is drawing a copy of Wooded Foothills. Now, this is where things do get a little bit scary, however, because Alex does have some really nice 5-mana spells in his deck. And actually in his hand, he's got a Xenagos, God of Revels, and Stormbreath Dragon. 2
Disdainful Strokes in Korby's main deck, and I believe he has 1 in hand, but he's going to need a lot of them to keep his head above water against all these threats that Alex is about to start casting.
So yeah, I was impressed with Disdainful Stroke last weekend. Impressed with it this weekend as well. Just not so much that we've seen a lot of it in action, but what people are playing. And Green Red Monsters, you got so many targets against that deck.
A lot of 5s. A lot of 5s.
We might be getting into the world where main decking 4 of these is not crazy. Here is Xenagos. And you see Bigelow cannot sacrifice that Polluted Delta fast enough.
But this may be a test spell from Alex. I don't think he cares that much about the Xenagos resolving. If it does, that's great. But I think he's really trying to clear the path for the Stormbreath Dragons.
You can see he's already going to put that in the graveyard because Disdainful Stroke is going to take care of that. Bigelow does have a copy of Opulent Palace in his hand, so he does have another land. Here are the attacks, and I think we'll see a blocker with the carry added. We'll see what else he can work towards, though. He needs one of these big mana spells.
He is out of action at this point. Just carry at it and land in hand, but a lot of big things to draw too.
Just going to pass the turn back. Voss will untap. Time for him to draw a card. Sarkin to draw. As you mentioned, a lot of 5-mana spells in this deck. Sarkin, Xenagos, Stormbreath Dragon. Can't forget about Crater's Claws as well.
This deck does such a good job of maximizing mana creatures. There's so many powerful sinks and so many cards that are powerful to play ahead of schedule.
It's kind of funny. Just green-red is just kind of the straightforward, obvious deck. A lot of players trying the clans first. You know, trying teamer decks. Other things, Abzan decks as well. Of course, Abzan quite good. But sometimes it's just better to be straightforward, just two-color deck.
Especially the ally color combinations, because you get your temples on top of your fetch land. Pretty stable mana.
Mm-hmm. Sarkin going to come in, elevator up to 5. So we got ourselves a 4/4 flyer that is, of course, indestructible and does have haste. So in the air comes Voss. Bigelow going to take 4. Korby needs to find something to do, and Island was the draw. He's just going to pass the turn back. I actually do like playing a land there if he can, just in the off chance that he does draw a copy of Villainous Wealth.
Or any of his card draws. I guess the other side of the argument is he has Sultai Charms in the deck where he wants a dead card to be able to loot away.
Sure.
But I think the upside of the maximum amount for Villainous Wealth is the correct place to be leaning towards.
5 mana, Crater's Claws. Of course, with Ferocious, it's going to deal enough to get the job done. And Alex Voss is going to win game number 1 here over Korby Bigelow. Monsters up a game here over Sultai Controls. We turn our attention to the sideboard. And we'll start with the Sultai deck. I imagine there's some spice back there.
2 Aether Spouts, 2 Dead Drops, 2 Drown in Sorrows, a Faded Antiquity, 3 copies of Saga Mauler, 2 Stubborn Denial, 3 copies of Thoughtseize. I really like bringing in the 2 copies of Drown in Sorrow in this matchup because there's a lot of mana creatures in Alex list, and Rebel Master is problematic. Besides that, Aether Spouts is okay, but there's a lot of haste in the Monsters deck. Dead Drop is, again, okay, but there's a lot of mana creatures and possible Rabble Master tokens floating around, so it wouldn't surprise me if you brought in the Dead Drops as well, though I believe that I would not.
Yeah, I think there are enough cards to sacrifice the Dead Drop where you're not going to get, you're not going to get Pelukros and Stormbreath Dragon.
It's going to be crazy sometimes. It's going to be really, really good, but I think Alex has enough expendable creatures in play that I don't think I would want to go to Dead Drop.
3 Hornet's Nest, a Hornet Queen, 2 Destructive Revelry, an Arbor Colossus, a Court of Calling, a Reclamation Sage, 3 Mistcutter Hydra, and then 3 copies of Anger of the Gods. For Alex, what makes this kind of interesting is I imagine he doesn't really know what he's up against.
Yep.
So how does he want to sideboard here? You'd probably just want to do some broad strokes things. Something big like an Arbor Colossus could be just, okay, that could be fine. Or, something versatile like a card like Court of Calling could be okay as well.
Yeah, the Court seems, like you said, versatile. I think the Hornet Queen, typically good against slow decks. It's a lot of value in one card. But again, this is not a place where I think Alex is going to be doing heavy sideboarding.
3 copies of Mistcutter Hydra as well. I haven't seen that one very much because blue's not that popular. Not sure how great it is in this particular matchup.
It's not like it used to be. With Mistcutter Hydra in the previous standard format, there were decks that played a lot of counter spells and blue removal. And there was also a mono blue creature deck. Not that Mistcutter Hydra was particularly good against blue devotion, but it was just another thing that tipped it into people's sideboards. Now, there's fewer counter spells floating around in standard, and most of the decks are multicolored. So even against blue decks, they have some answer to Mistcutter Hydra that protection from blue doesn't account for. And that's the interesting thing about rotations. A lot of cards get better. We talk a lot about cards like Desecration Demon last year going from not in decks to being a marquee player in the format. The same thing can happen in reverse. And a card like Mistcutter Hydra can go from 3 or 4 copies in every green sideboard to not really getting played.
Yeah, I think some players do forget about that, Wind the clock back, Thassa Master Waves everywhere. Now,
Nothing.
Collecting dust,
Yeah.
I think, is the best way to put it.
The best god right now might be Nylea, which in last year's standard was probably the 4th best god.
Yeah. Oh, poor Heliod.
Thassa, Erebos, and Perforos all had more significant tournament resumes than Nylea.
Temple of Malady going to start off game number 2 of round 6 for Bigelow. See if Voss is actually able to accelerate this game. He didn't accelerate last game, which is a little surprising to see him have success without any acceleration. This will be a Thoughtseize.
Well, playing ahead of schedule last game wouldn't have been that good for Alex because Korby had a lot of removal spells.
Yeah.
Just having, here's a good threat, here's a good threat, here's a good threat, that was the best way for Alex to approach game 1.
See a hand there. Courser's going to bite the dust. 2 Sarkans and a Xenagos, along with lands, 2 mountains, and a wooded foothill. So doesn't look like we'll see Alex playing ahead of schedule here either, unless he has a timely top deck. Crater's Claws is not it, so he's just going to pass the turn back over to Bigelow. Bigelow will draw a card, because he's got a Dissolve and a Hero's Downfall there. Going to scry here with Temple of Malady, leave it on top very quickly. There's Sylvan Caryatid, and he'll just pass the turn back over to Voss. Voss is going to draw. Sylvan Caryatid is the card that he's drawn this turn. And that'll actually bridge the gap pretty nicely to make him go from 3 to 5, and we know his best cards are 5 mana right now.
Well, here's the thing. Based on Korby thought-seizing away the Corsair Crewfix, which is not that threatening of a card, that must have been a mana consideration because he felt like he could just answer all the 4s and 5s with what was left over in his hand. So even though Alex is, again, ahead of schedule, I don't think that's what Korby's really worried about. He probably has answers with Dissolves and Heroes Downfalls to weather the storm of Alex's big stuff.
And we're going to see if Korby cares about this or not right now, because the haymakers are going to start coming down. He knows the Sarkans are over there. It's going to show up probably 1 turn earlier than he would have liked, given that when he Thoughtseize there was no mana accelerant. But Voss is going to start tapping mana and deploying threats. He's going to start with Sarkhan. That's going to get dissolved. So Bigelow will scry. Top card going to go to the bottom. That'll be Voss's turn. We go back Korby's way. Korby will draw. Didn't get a great look. This is 3 mana, however. There's an Ashiok. So now that's going to exile a couple of cards. Temple of Abandon, Elvish Mystic, and another copy of Elvish Mystic. Not so bad. So you're going to move the creatures that Ashiok can return back over this way.
And this is a good risk here from Korby, even though he is tapping low. Whatever 4-power haster Alex can generate can't kill Ashiok, and then Korby can untap and use a removal spell on whatever the big play is.
Voss draws his card for the turn.
And if Alex wants to use his whole turn with a Crater's Claws on the Ashiok, well, that's perfectly fine by Korby.
You're probably just fine with that. Here's Sarkhan. Deep breath there from Voss, deciding where he wants to go with him. Am I going upstairs or am I going after Ashiok? Is that exactly what Bigelow wants me to do, is go after Ashiok? Do I have to go after Ashiok anyway? Looks like he will. So the Mightmare Weaver is down to 1. Island the draw. That'll come into play very quickly. This will go up. We'll turn over a Caryatid, along with a Rabble Master. Maybe a mystery card. Why can't I think that's Fanatic as Xenagos, perhaps?
That looks right.
Yep, 4 of those. It's the promo version. Almost tricked me. Temple of Abandon the draw here for Voss, so he's going to scry. Take a look at the top card. That stays on top very quickly. And in response to the activation, how about a little Hero's Downfall action? Get that out of here.
So you can't respond to the counters going up or down on Planeswalkers, but you can respond to whatever's about to happen. So we can Hero's Downfall before the Indestructible Clause takes effect.
Crater's Claws will take care of Ashiok. We can't forget that Voss did leave the top card of his deck on top, so looks like maybe a juicy one will be the draw. Bigelow draws his card for the turn. Looked like it was a copy of Murderous Cut. Perhaps it's time for him to pass the turn back. Not a lot to do. That's exactly what's going to happen. Voss will draw the card that he kept on top. Didn't get a great look at it. There's a Temple. That's going to go to the bottom. You have to imagine it was something powerful if he kept it. 4 mana. Xenagos. But we knew about that one already. So it's at 3. Satyr token's going to come party here.
Yeah, I'm really curious what Alex leftover is at this point.
No attacks, of course. Caryatid's in the way. Bigelow just going to pass the turn back. Looks like Aether Spouts was his draw.
I think Aether Spouts is okay in this matchup. Good, but not great.
Yeah. Xenagos comes in. Pump up the jam on this guy. Now it's time for some more attacking. Here are the attacks. This will be the Spouts. So those will go away.
Buying a little time, but still not a solution to the Xenagos.
Bigelow draws a copy of Dissolve. That's a turn too late. Wouldn't like that for the Xenagos, I imagine, last turn. But we're still waiting here for Bigelow to draw one of his big Haymaker spells.
Even then, he still needs more mana, too.
Yeah. Here's 3 mana. That's Rebel Master. Now Voss is really starting to get to work here. Though that will get dissolved. A little scry action here for Bigelow. He's going to leave that card on top. Makes you wonder what that is. Presses 0 on Xenagos, Satyr token. other Xenagos going to pump there. Here we go.
And Korby had the option of just using a Murderous Cut on that Rebel Master, but I think he just wants to scry more than anything else.
Yeah. Temple put the top card to the bottom. There's a Rebel Master. Maybe now's the time to use the Murderous Cut.
We'll see, he's got some gold cards in hand. If it's Soul Tide Charm, seems like not a bad spot to use it. He's been sitting on it for a while. I think he should be on the fence about maybe using them just to draw 2 and discard 1, but also not a bad spot to just kill the Rebel Master.
And Murderous Cut just going to be a premium removal spell for years to come.
Yep.
It's unbelievable.
I think if there turns out that there were mistakes in cons, I think Murderous Cut's going to be in the top 3 most likely candidates.
Red zone. There's Murderous Cut there. Of course, that can't attack because of the Xenagos, that you guys really can't see at the top of the screen, but there is a Xenagos God of Revels, granting things haste and working its way towards becoming an active god. As Bigelow will draw a card. Thought sees the draw. That's nobody's friend right now.
And again, Bigelow, I think, has to consider just drawing 2 and discarding 1, especially now with a Thoughtseize in hand.
We might be at that point. I will say this, he's got to do something.
Yeah.
No more time to mess around here. He is under the gun in a big way. Perhaps it's Villainous Wealth. It is.
Here we go.
We will spin the proverbial wheel here.
All right.
Lucanos is a hit. Mountain.
All right.
Fanatic. Mountain.
Got some buddies.
Boom. And boom. Targeted player, or target opponent, excuse me, sells the top cards of his or her library. You may cast any number of non-land cards with converted mana cost X or less from among them without paying their mana cost. Gold buys death. Death earns gold. Like that flavor text. Got Fanatic as Xenagos and a Pelugranos for his troubles. It's not a bad Villainous Wealth, but gonna have to do better the next time.
And Alex's hand now, just 2 more copies of Xenagos.
Yep. Gonna press the 0 button here. We can't forget, too, that Bigelow does have green mana in his deck, so the monstrosity on Pelugranos is actually realistic this game.
For sure. And Alex is out of chump blockers, really. I mean, he has the Goblin token left over, but he's at risk of losing the Xenagos inside of combat. Maybe he doesn't care that much about it because he has 2 more left over in his hand. But
And you saw him play a replacement one so he can make another Satyr token. He'll pump up the jam on that one. And everybody's going to come in here. So one of those Satyr tokens is bigger than the rest. 6, 7 damage is going to come across. Bigelow's down to 4.
But now Korby gets to play a little cleanup.
Yeah, still got some work to do, though.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, he's not out of this by a long shot, but he gets a carry at it on defense. He can, probably use the Fanatic to take care of Xenagos and have monstrous plus blockers up. That's a board.
Yeah.
Got something going.
Temple going to put the top card to the bottom. Perhaps it's time for more wealth. It is. This will be for 4.
And I think this is worse than just using Pelugranos this turn. This is really high risk.
And it gets an Elvish Mystic and a Sylvan Caryatid out of the deal. Lightning Strike actually gets cast as well, so that's not so bad. Okay. And then the Forest, well, that goes away. And just try to turtle up now.
But a lot of draws now deck that are just lethal. Stormbreath Dragon, Crater's Claws, Sarkin.
A lot of tough ones to beat. Xenagos ain't it, though. That's going to come in. Going to press the 0 button again. Another Satyr token.
I don't even think Alex can really attack even.
I think this turn there aren't any good attacks. I think that's the problem for him. He's looking for those cards that you mentioned. Go to the skies or fireball you out. I think that's the big issue. You see Voss is going to probably come to that conclusion as well, but okay, red zone it is. He ends up losing a decent chunk of his board doing things this way. Maybe not a ton.
This attack makes sense if Alex has Lightning Strike in his list.
Yep.
Because this attack knocks Korby from 4 to 3, guaranteed, and now Lightning Strike is a draw.
Yeah, and, well, he does have 3 of those in his deck list. One of them was cast last turn, but does have that. So he will lose some Satyr tokens here in this exchange.
But keep in mind, it doesn't take Korby that long to turn around and start threatening Alex's life total.
I think Opulent Palace, I believe, was the draw this turn. That'll come into play tapped. It looks like we're going to go into the red zone here. Take care of the Xenagos. Pass the turn back. No more Satyr tokens for Voss. Take a draw. It's all about going to the skies here for Alex.
I think that's a spot where Korby may have wanted to consider going ahead and attacking with Pelucranos last turn. Although this is a little rough.
This Cutter Hydra comes off the top of the deck. That's a 7/7. We'll see what Xenagos can work with here in this situation. Looks like he's going to pump up the jam over there. Everybody's going to come into the red zone. Now, Xenagos grants haste and +X/+X. The thing it does not do is grant trample.
Yep.
So that's a big deal here. Monstrosity activation looks like he's going to take down both of these. It's not Pelucranos real big.
So this is the reason that I felt like Korby probably should have sent in Pelucranos last turn, is Alex drew basically the best card for, Korby to want to have more blockers back on the ground, and it still didn't really matter. The Pelucranos still wasn't blocking. And Alex has so many draws that just kill Korby that even if he's able to weather the storm of the Mistcutter Hydra, he has to win the game pretty quickly.
Yeah, he's got to get a little bit more aggressive. He's got to get some attacking going here. If Pelucranos were turning sideways, I think it would change the way that Alex actually plays the game. As it stands, Bigelow is hoping for the best as far as draw steps are concerned.
Trying to find a Soul Tide Charm or something that allows him to kill the Mistcutter Hydra.
Yeah, the problem with the Charm,
Soul Tide doesn't work, but
yeah.
Murderous Cut, for example, works. But I think that Korby may have had the tools to be able to chump block this Mistcutter Hydra and race with Pelucranos. And now his board is getting withered away here because of all the chump blocking.
The thing that always makes it scary, right, is the fact that whatever creature Alex draws is going to get haste from the Xenagos. But, I think that you're in this situation where you just have to hope your opponent misses a couple turns.
Exactly.
I think that's all that you can really do. You see Courser's going to reveal land here.
Silence the Believers, also a big draw here for Korby.
This is true. We'll see if we can get a better look at his top card. Look, the deck is a little bit off screen at this point. Courser's going to get a little bit bigger too. And he'll also have haste now because of the Xenagos. There we go. Oh, well, the top card is not a good one for Mr. Bigelow.
Yeah.
Old Stormbreath Dragon. You mentioned Silence the Believers. That'd be a big one at this point. But the top card actually for Bigelow this turn was a copy of Courser of Crufix. That's going to come in. Pearl Lake Ancient is the top card. There is a Swamp. Gain a life up to 4.
Not the best blocker against either Stormbreath or Mistcutter Hydra.
Yep. Bigelow just has to pass the turn back. Stormbreath Dragon to draw. Lightning Strike on top of the deck now as well. You saw Bigelow take himself from 3 to 4 from the Courser, however. But that is going to do it. Stormbreath Dragon going to get the job done in the skies. Alex Voss going to win this match over Korby Bigelow. 2-0. Monsters does it again. Sultai Control, a very innovative deck there from Bigelow, but the draws did not work out the way he would have liked. And this Monsters deck is pretty straightforward in what it's trying to accomplish, but apparently that's pretty good.
Well, Korby's deck is a control deck. It's got a lot of removal, card drawing. It is definitely a control deck. But I think he may have missed some opportunities that game just to get in some shots with Pelucranos. I think the turn that Mistcutter Hydra was drawn, he could have attacked the previous turn. And then for at least a turn or two after that, had opportunities to attack. And maybe the game plays out a little bit differently if he starts pressuring Alex's life total, because that Pelucranos was a 9/9. I mean, it gets lethal very quickly.
That does not take long to kill the opponent. One thing to note here about the Screen Monsters deck, again, 1 Grand Prix Los Angeles. And I know that we haven't seen Chris Van Meter very much in the Open Series since he did qualify for the Players' Championship, but if we do, I got a feeling I know what he's going to be playing.
This deck is good. I'm really impressed by this deck. The threat base seems so well suited for Standard right now, especially